I found out about my daughter's wedding from a Facebook post, not a phone call, not a handwritten invitation slipped under my door. A goddamn Facebook post with her beaming face pressed against some guy I'd never met, captioned, "Can't wait to marry my soulmate." I sat there in my kitchen, coffee going cold in my hand, staring at my phone screen like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. Sarah was getting married. My Sarah. The girl I'd raised alone after her mother walked out when she was 6. The girl whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose nightmares I'd chased away, whose college tuition I'd worked double shifts to pay. She hadn't even told me. I scrolled through the comments. 237 of them. Friends congratulating her, asking about the date, the venue, the dress. My finger hovered over the comment box. What was I supposed to write? "Congratulations, sweetheart. Your father who raised you would love to know more." I closed the app instead. 3 days later, my phone finally rang. Sarah's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, honey. Dad." She sounded distracted, like she was multitasking. "I need to talk to you about something." My heart lifted despite everything. "Of course. About the wedding?" A pause. "Yeah. Look, Dad, I'm going to be straight with you. Blake and I are having a small ceremony. Very intimate. Just close family and friends." "I understand. When is it?" 2 weeks from Saturday. But here's the thing." She took a breath. "Blake's family is paying for everything. His parents are very traditional, very particular about how things should be done, and they think, well, we think it would be better if you didn't come." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set my coffee cup down carefully, watching my hand shake. "I don't understand." "Come on, Dad. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You know how you are. You're embarrassing. Blake's family has money, they have standards, and honestly, you don't fit. I don't need an old loser to walk me down the aisle. Blake's father is going to do it." The line went quiet. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. "Are you still there?" Sarah's voice carried an edge of impatience. "Look, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being realistic. You live in that crappy apartment, you drive that beat-up Honda, you work at a hardware store. Blake's dad is a neurosurgeon. Do you see the problem?" "I worked at that hardware store to put you through school," I said quietly. "And I appreciate that. I really do. But this is my day, Dad. My special day. I can't have you there making Blake's family uncomfortable. His mother already thinks I'm marrying down because I don't come from money. If you show up looking like you always do, it'll just confirm everything she thinks about my background." "Sarah, I have to go. We're doing a cake tasting. I'll talk to you later." She hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, someone's dog barked. Normal sounds in a world that had suddenly tilted sideways. I'd given up everything for Sarah. After her mother left, I'd been both parents. I'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. I'd sewn crooked Halloween costumes at midnight. I'd missed promotions because I wouldn't take jobs that required travel. Every decision I'd made for 26 years had been about making sure Sarah had what she needed. And now, I was an embarrassment. An old loser. I picked up my phone again and looked at her Facebook post. Blake Peterson. That was his name. I clicked on his profile. Private, but his profile picture showed him on a yacht, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His banner photo was him shaking hands with some local politician at a charity gala. Something about his smile bothered me. Too perfect, too practiced. I started digging. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? I'd always been good at research. Had to be, raising a kid alone on a hardware store salary. You learn to find deals, to compare prices, to read the fine print. You develop a nose for bullshit. Blake Peterson was 29, 5 years older than Sarah. He worked at his father's medical equipment company. vice president of something or other. His LinkedIn made him sound impressive until you read between the lines and realized he'd never worked anywhere except Daddy's firm. Every promotion coincided with a birthday or holiday. Every achievement was tied to family connections. I found his Instagram next. Public, thank God. Pictures of expensive restaurants, luxury cars, tropical vacations. And there was Sarah, appearing in photos from about 8 months ago. Her smile looked different in these pictures. Tighter, more posed. Like she was trying to fit into a frame that wasn't quite her size. I kept scrolling, found a photo from a Christmas party. Blake had his arm around Sarah, but he was looking at someone else, and his hand was positioned possessively on her shoulder, fingers digging in just slightly. The caption read, "Another boring family obligation." Sarah had commented with 3 heart emojis. Blake hadn't responded. Then I found something interesting. A post from 2 years ago, before Sarah. Blake at a bar with his arm around a different woman. Dark hair, bright smile, eyes that looked happy. The caption, "My beautiful wife." The comments were congratulatory, full of heart emojis and well wishes. But there were no more posts with this woman after that month. She vanished from his feed like she'd never existed. I clicked on the woman's profile, Jennifer Hayes. Her last post was from 18 months ago. Finally free from a narcissist. If you're in an abusive relationship, please reach out to someone. You deserve better. I stayed silent too long because I was ashamed. Don't make my mistake. I took a screenshot. Over the next week, I became a digital detective. I created a spreadsheet, cross-referenced dates, built a timeline. I found Blake's public records. A restraining order filed by Jennifer Hayes on March 15th, 2 years ago, citing verbal abuse and threats. It was dropped 6 weeks later. In my experience, restraining orders don't get dropped because everything worked out fine. They get dropped because someone applied pressure or offered money. I found a lawsuit from a former employee of Peterson Medical Equipment, filed a year ago. Sexual harassment allegations against Blake specifically. The case was settled out of court 3 months later for an undisclosed sum, with a non-disclosure agreement attached. The employee's LinkedIn showed she'd moved to another state shortly after. I found 3 speeding tickets in Blake's record over 2 years. Not unusual on its own, but I also found a DUI from 14 months ago that had somehow disappeared from the public record. I only found it because a local news website had archived an article about it. VP of Peterson Medical Equipment arrested for DUI. The article had been taken down, but the internet never forgets. Someone had cached it. I also found Blake's parents, Dr. Richard Peterson and his wife, Victoria. On the surface, they looked perfect. Big colonial house in Riverside Estates, the wealthy part of town. Active in charity work, their names on plaques at the hospital and the art museum. Pillars of the community, the kind of people who got their photos in the society pages. But I kept digging. Dr. Peterson had been sued for malpractice twice in the past 5 years. The first case involved a 72-year-old woman who'd gone in for a routine knee surgery and come out with complications that required 3 additional procedures. The second involved a man who claimed Dr. Peterson had performed an unnecessary spinal surgery that left him worse off than before. Both cases settled with non-disclosure agreements. The settlements came from the practice's insurance, but I found the insurance company's name and looked up their public filings. The payouts had been substantial, over $1 million each. Victoria Peterson was harder to research. She didn't work, spent her time on charity boards and country club committees. But I found an old newspaper article from 1994, before everything was digital, archived in the public library's database. Local woman arrested for embezzlement. Victoria Hartfield, her maiden name. She'd worked at a law firm and had been caught stealing from client accounts. The charges were dropped after her family paid full restitution plus damages. 6 months later, she married Dr. Richard Peterson. I wondered if he knew. I wondered if he cared. This was the family Sarah thought was better than me. This was the family she was willing to throw me away for. I didn't sleep much that week. I'd lie awake thinking about Sarah as a little girl. The way she'd grab my hand when we crossed the street, her small fingers wrapped tight around mine. How she'd make me tea when I had a cold, even though she was only 8 and the tea was terrible, too much sugar and not enough steeping time. But I'd drink every drop, because she'd made it with love. The Christmas she'd saved her allowance for 3 months to buy me a wallet, because mine was falling apart, and she'd been so proud when she gave it to me, her eyes shining. Where had that girl gone? When had she learned to be ashamed of the life we'd built together? My phone rang at 2 a.m, 5 days before the wedding. Sarah's name on the screen. I answered, heart pounding. "Dad?" Her voice was small, uncertain. For a moment she sounded like a child again. "I'm here, honey. I've been thinking. Maybe you should come to the wedding after all. I mean, you're my dad. It doesn't feel right without you there." Hope flared in my chest, painful and bright. "I'd love that, Sarah. I'd really, but you can't walk me down the aisle. Blake's dad is still doing that. That's non-negotiable. His family would be really upset if we changed that now. And you have to sit in the back, not with family, maybe the second to last row, and maybe don't talk to Blake's family too much. Just, blend in. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention to yourself." The hope died as quickly as it had sparked. "I see. Dad, don't be like that. I'm trying to compromise here. I'm trying to include you." "No, Sarah. You're trying to have it both ways. You want to ease your guilt without actually treating me like your father. You want me there so you can tell yourself you did the right thing, but you want me invisible so Blake's family doesn't have to acknowledge that you came from nothing. That's not fair. Isn't it? You told me I was an embarrassment. You told me I was a loser. Now you want me to sit in the back of the church and be grateful for the privilege of watching a stranger walk my daughter down the aisle? You want me to smile and nod while Blake's father does the job I've been preparing for since the day you were born? Blake's dad isn't a stranger. He's going to be family. And you're being dramatic. It's just a wedding. It's just one day. It's not just one day, Sarah. It's a symbol of everything. It's you choosing them over me. It's you saying that money and status matter more than 26 years of me raising you alone. She was quiet for a moment. Then her voice changed, became cold and hard. Fine. Don't come. I don't care anymore. I tried to include you, I really did, but you're too proud to accept a reasonable compromise. You'd rather play the victim than be part of my special day. Sarah, I'm done. Don't call me again. Don't try to contact me. You're not invited to the wedding. You're not invited to my life. And honestly, Dad, I'm not sure you ever really were. Maybe Mom had the right idea leaving. Maybe you're just too difficult to love. She hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time, her words echoing in my head. Too difficult to love. Is that what she really thought? That her mother had left because of me? Not because she'd been selfish and unstable and unable to handle the responsibility of a family? I got up, went to my computer, and started writing a letter. My hands shook, but the words came easily. I'd been gathering this information for a week. Now I just had to organize it, present it clearly, make it undeniable. I wrote about Blake's previous marriage to Jennifer Hayes. I wrote about the restraining order and how it had been dropped. I wrote about the DUI that had been expunged. I wrote about the sexual harassment lawsuit and the employee who'd been paid off. I wrote about Dr. Peterson's malpractice suits and the $1 million settlements. I wrote about Victoria's embezzlement charge from 30 years ago. But I needed one more thing. I needed proof that Blake was still married. The next morning, I called a private investigator. I'd found her online, a woman who specialized in background checks and domestic investigations. Her name was Linda Reeves, and she sounded professional and discreet on the phone. I need you to find out if someone's divorce was finalized, I said. That's public record. You can check that yourself at the courthouse. I checked. I can't find a divorce decree. But I need to be absolutely sure before I act on this information. What's this for? My daughter is about to marry a man who might still be legally married to someone else. She was quiet for a moment. That's bigamy. If you're right, he could go to prison. I know. That's why I need to be sure. This will cost you. Court records in other states, verification of documents, possibly tracking down the first wife for confirmation. I'm looking at $1,500, maybe $2,000. I thought about my savings account. $3,000, built up over years of careful budgeting. It was supposed to be for emergencies. This was an emergency. Do it. Linda called me back 3 days later, the day before the wedding. You were right. Blake Peterson married Jennifer Hayes 4 years ago in Nevada. They separated 2 years ago, but the divorce was never finalized. Jennifer filed, but Blake never signed the papers. According to her, he kept promising to sign, kept making excuses, and eventually she gave up and moved on with her life. She assumed it would work itself out eventually. So he's still married. Legally, yes. If he goes through with this wedding tomorrow, he's committing bigamy. Can you get me documentation? I already did. Marriage certificate, Jennifer's filed divorce petition with Blake's signature missing, a sworn statement from Jennifer. I'm emailing everything now. Thank you. One more thing, Linda said. I talked to Jennifer. She's scared of Blake and his family. They threatened her when she tried to leave. They paid her $50,000 to drop the restraining order and stay quiet. She's been living in fear for 2 years. If you expose this, they're going to know it came from her. They won't, I said. I'll make sure of it. This will look like it came from me. You're a good father. I'm not sure Sarah would agree. I hung up and checked my email. Linda had sent everything. I added it to my letter, printed it out, read it over 5 times to make sure every fact was accurate, every claim was verifiable. This wasn't speculation or gossip. This was truth, backed by documents and public records. I folded the letter carefully and put it in an envelope. Tomorrow, I would hand it to the priest, and Sarah's perfect wedding would collapse. I knew she would hate me for it. I knew I was about to humiliate her in front of everyone she knew. I knew our relationship might never recover, but I also knew that if I did nothing, she would marry a man who was still married to someone else, a man who'd abused his previous wife, a man who would eventually show Sarah the same cruelty he'd shown Jennifer, and by the time Sarah realized the truth, it would be too late. Sometimes being a parent means making the choice your child will hate you for. Sometimes love looks like betrayal. I bought a new suit. Nothing fancy, just a dark gray suit from the department store, but it fit well and made me look respectable. I got a haircut from the cheap place near my apartment, $15, including tip. Shaved carefully that morning, using the cologne Sarah had given me for Father's Day 3 years ago, back when she still remembered I existed. The church was beautiful. St. Mary's, the big Catholic church downtown, the one with the stained glass windows and the marble floors. White roses everywhere, ribbons on the pews, soft classical music playing from hidden speakers. I slipped in through a side door and stood in the back, watching the guests arrive. Blake's family was easy to spot. They moved like royalty, greeting people with air kisses and practiced laughs. Dr. Peterson wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. Victoria was dripping in jewelry, diamond earrings, and a necklace that caught the light every time she moved. They surrounded themselves with other wealthy people, a protective circle of money and status. Sarah's friends were there too, people I recognized from her college years and her first job out of school. They looked uncomfortable, underdressed compared to Blake's crowd, clustered together like they were trying to stay safe. Sarah arrived in a white limousine. She looked stunning in her wedding dress, a flowing white gown with intricate lace detail, her hair swept up in an elegant arrangement, a veil trailing behind her. For a moment, she was 5 years old again, playing dress-up in my bedroom, wearing her mother's old scarves and asking me if she looked like a princess. I had to look away. The ceremony was starting. The guests filed in and took their seats. I moved closer, staying in the shadows near the side chapel where candles flickered in red glass holders. The priest took his position at the altar, an older man with white hair and kind eyes. Blake stood there in his expensive tuxedo, grinning at his groomsmen, confident and relaxed. He looked like a man who'd never had a worry in his life, who'd never faced consequences for anything. Dr. Peterson waited in the back of the church, ready to walk Sarah down the aisle. He was talking to Sarah, his hand on her shoulder, saying something that made her smile nervously. She glanced around the church, and for just a second, her gaze swept over where I stood in the shadows. I don't think she saw me. She was too focused on what was about to happen, too lost in the moment she'd been planning for months. The music changed. Pachelbel's canon. Everyone stood. Sarah appeared at the back of the church, her arm linked with Dr. Peterson's. She was smiling, but I could see the tension around her eyes, the way her hand gripped her bouquet too tightly. Dr. Peterson looked proud, like he was doing her a favor by filling in for her inadequate father. They walked down the aisle slowly. Sarah's eyes were locked on Blake. He was smiling at her, but it was that practiced smile from his Instagram photos, the one that didn't quite reach his eyes. They reached the altar. Dr. Peterson handed her off to Blake with a firm handshake, a gesture that said, "I'm trusting you with something precious." Blake took Sarah's hand. They turned to face the priest. I moved quickly, quietly. Years of working retail had taught me how to navigate crowds without being noticed, how to slip between people and avoid drawing attention. I walked along the side wall, came up behind the priest's ornate wooden lectern, and set my envelope on it, right on top of his notes. The priest was reading from his liturgy, talking about the sanctity of marriage, about commitment and trust, and building a life together. The irony was not lost on me. He didn't notice me. Nobody noticed me. I was just part of the background, invisible as always. I moved back into the shadows near the side chapel and waited, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone in the church must be able to hear it. The priest finished his opening remarks about marriage being a sacred bond. He reached for what he thought were his notes for the vows. His hand landed on my envelope instead. He opened it, probably thinking it was some last-minute change from the wedding planner, a special reading someone had requested. He started reading aloud. To the gathered witnesses of this marriage, there are some things you should know about the groom and his family before these vows are spoken. The church went silent. The kind of silence where you can hear the building settling, hear someone's stomach gurgle 3 rows back. Blake's smile faltered. Sarah turned to look at the priest, confused. The priest continued, his voice uncertain now, but still reading because he'd been trained to follow the liturgy, to read what was in front of him. Blake Peterson is not the man he pretends to be. 2 years ago, his previous wife, Jennifer Hayes, filed a restraining order against him for domestic violence, citing verbal abuse, threats, and controlling behavior. The order was filed on March 15th. The charges were dropped 6 weeks later when the Peterson family paid Jennifer Hayes $50,000 to go away and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Blake's face went white, then red. "What the hell is this?" The priest looked up, confused, but someone in the front row shouted, "Keep reading," and he continued, his hands shaking now. Blake's father, Dr. Richard Peterson, has been sued for malpractice twice in the past 5 years. He performed unnecessary surgeries on elderly patients to inflate his billing, putting their lives at risk for profit. Both cases were settled with non-disclosure agreements for over $1 million each, funded by insurance fraud and Medicare overbilling. Dr. Peterson stood up, his face purple with rage. "This is outrageous. Who wrote this? This is slander. I'll sue everyone in this church." But the priest kept reading, his voice barely audible now over the rising noise. Victoria Peterson was arrested in 1994 for embezzlement from her employer, Hartfield and Associates law firm. She stole over $80,000 from client accounts. The charges were sealed after her family paid full restitution plus damages. 6 months later, she married Dr. Peterson. Blake himself has a DUI from 14 months ago that was expunged from his record after his father donated $100,000 to the Police Benevolent Fund and called in political favors. The church erupted. People were shouting, standing up, pulling out phones. Blake's groomsmen were looking at him with shock and disgust. Victoria Peterson was crying, mascara running down her face. Dr. Peterson was trying to climb over people to get to the altar, yelling about lawsuits and lies and slander. And most importantly, the priest read, his voice cracking, Blake Peterson is still legally married to Jennifer Hayes. The divorce was never finalized. Jennifer filed the papers 2 years ago, but Blake refused to sign them. He has been delaying and avoiding and making excuses. This ceremony cannot legally proceed. If it does, Blake Peterson will be guilty of bigamy, a felony offense in this state. Sarah stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet falling from her hands, white roses scattering across the marble floor. She turned to Blake slowly, her face completely blank, in shock. "Is this true?" Blake's face was red, his jaw clenched. "No, I mean some of it, but it's complicated. Baby, let me explain. This is taken out of context. Someone is trying to ruin us. Can't you see that?" "Are you still married?" "Technically, but—" Sarah slapped him. The sound echoed through the church like a gunshot. Then she picked up her dress and ran, her veil flying behind her, tears streaming down her face, mascara leaving black tracks on her cheeks. The crowd was chaos now. Blake's family was trying to leave, pushing through guests who were blocking the aisles, demanding answers. Blake stood alone at the altar, his groomsmen backing away from him like he was radioactive. Someone was already on their phone, probably calling a lawyer or a reporter or both. The priest set down my letter, crossed himself, and walked away from the altar without another word. I slipped out the side door before anyone could spot me, my hands shaking, my chest tight. I'd done it. I'd destroyed my daughter's wedding in the most public, humiliating way possible. And I had no idea if she'd ever forgive me. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too hard to drive safely. I pulled into a parking lot 3 blocks from the church and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. What had I done? I kept seeing Sarah's face when the priest read that Blake was still married. The shock, the betrayal, the humiliation. She'd looked like something inside her had broken. But then I thought about what would have happened if I'd done nothing. She would have married Blake. They would have had a life together. And eventually, probably sooner rather than later, he would have shown his true colors. The verbal abuse Jennifer had fled from. The controlling behavior. The manipulation. And by then, Sarah would have been legally tied to him, financially entangled, possibly with children. Getting out would have been so much harder. I'd saved her from that. I had to believe I'd saved her from that. My phone started ringing. Sarah. I stared at it, watching her name flash on the screen, my finger hovering over the answer button. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't hear her voice right now, couldn't hear her tell me how much she hated me. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. Text messages started flooding in, the phone buzzing constantly like an angry wasp. "Dad, did you do this? I know it was you. How could you? You ruined my life. Everyone saw. Everyone knows. I'll never forgive you for this. I hate you." I turned off my phone. I drove to a diner 40 miles away, some anonymous place off the highway where nobody would know me. Ordered coffee I didn't drink and sat in a booth by the window, watching cars pass on the interstate, normal people doing normal things, living normal lives where they hadn't just destroyed their daughter's wedding. The waitress kept refilling my coffee. She was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. After the 3rd refill, she said, "Honey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I did something today, I said. Something that needed to be done, but I don't know if it was right. She nodded like she understood. Sometimes the right thing and the good thing aren't the same. Sometimes you got to hurt someone to help them. That's what being a parent is about. How did you know I was talking about my kid? You got that look. I raised 4 of them. I know that look. She patted my shoulder and walked away. I stayed there until dark, until the dinner rush started, and I felt guilty taking up a booth. Left a $20 tip on a $7 tab. Drove home through empty streets, the windows down, trying to clear my head. My apartment felt smaller than usual when I got back, emptier. I turned on my phone. 462 messages. I didn't read them. I couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, I made myself read the messages. Most were from Sarah, her tone progressing from confused to angry to devastated to furious. The later messages were just 1 or 2 words. Bastard. Hate you. Never again. But there were other messages too. Numbers I didn't recognize. I opened one. Mr. Anderson, this is Robert Chen from Peterson Family Lawyers. You will be hearing from us regarding defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Every statement in your letter will be examined, and any inaccuracies will result in maximum legal consequences. Another one. This is Victoria Peterson. How dare you drag my family's name through the mud? Whatever Sarah told you about us was a lie. You're a jealous, bitter old man who can't stand to see his daughter happy. We will sue you for everything you have. And one more, this one making my blood run cold. You just made an enemy of the wrong family. Watch your back. I called Linda Reeves, the private investigator. I saw the news, she said before I could speak. Small town, big scandal. It's already on 3 news websites. Did you really have the priest read it at the wedding? I did. That took guts, stupid guts, but guts. The Peterson family is going to come after you hard. They're already threatening lawsuits. Let them. Everything in your letter was true, right? You can prove all of it? Every word. I have documentation for everything. Then you're fine. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. They can sue all they want, but they won't win. Might bankrupt you in lawyer fees, though. I don't have anything for them to take. That's actually a pretty good defense strategy. Hard to squeeze blood from a stone. She paused. How's your daughter? She hates me. Give her time. Right now she's humiliated and angry, but eventually she'll realize you saved her from a nightmare. I hope you're right. I hung up and looked out my window. A car was parked across the street, a black sedan with tinted windows. It hadn't been there yesterday. As I watched, a man in a suit got out, looked up at my apartment building, then got back in the car. The Petersons were watching me. The next few days were a blur. The story exploded. Local news picked it up first. Society wedding ends in scandal. Then regional news, groom exposed as bigamist at altar. Then national websites got hold of it. Father's revenge, the letter that destroyed a wedding. Reporters showed up at my apartment. I didn't answer the door. They called my phone. I blocked the numbers. They found me at work. My manager at the hardware store had to kick them out. Tom, maybe you should take some time off, he said. Let this blow over. I need to work. I need to do something normal. Fair enough. But if they keep showing up, I'll have to ask you to leave. It's disrupting business. The reporters did keep showing up. After 3 days, my manager called me into his office. I'm sorry, Tom. You're a good worker, and I believe you did what you thought was right. But I've got customers complaining. I've got reporters in the parking lot. I can't have this. You're firing me? I'm putting you on unpaid leave until this dies down. Maybe a month, maybe 2. I'm sorry. I walked out of the hardware store with my personal items in a cardboard box, feeling like a cliché from a movie. The black sedan was still parked across from my apartment when I got home. That night, Sarah called. I almost didn't answer, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to hear her voice. Hello? Dad. She sounded wrecked, her voice hoarse from crying. I need to see you. Okay? When? Now. I'm downstairs. I looked out the window. She was standing on the sidewalk, looking up at my building. She was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair in a messy ponytail. Even from 4 floors up, I could see she'd been crying. I buzzed her in. She climbed the stairs slowly, like each step hurt. When I opened the door, she just stood there for a moment, staring at me. Then she pushed past me into the apartment and turned to face me. Is it true? She asked. Everything in that letter? Is it all true? Yes. Blake was really still married? Yes. I have the documentation, marriage certificate, Jennifer's divorce filing, everything. The restraining order? The abuse? Yes. Jennifer was scared of him, Sarah. His family paid her off to keep quiet. She sat down heavily on my couch, put her face in her hands. I need to see the proof. I need to see all of it. I got my folder from the desk drawer, the one where I'd kept all my research, handed it to her. She spent the next hour going through everything: the marriage certificate, the restraining order, the lawsuit from Blake's employee, the malpractice suits against Dr. Peterson, the article about Victoria's embezzlement, Jennifer's sworn statement about Blake refusing to sign the divorce papers. When she finished, she looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. You humiliated me. I know. Everyone I know was there. Everyone saw. I can't show my face anywhere. I had to quit my job because my coworkers won't stop asking questions. I'm living in a motel because I can't afford the apartment Blake and I were going to rent. My credit cards are maxed out from wedding expenses that I now have to pay for myself because the Petersons canceled their checks. I'm ruined, Dad. You ruined me. I'm sorry for how I did it, but I'm not sorry for doing it. Why? Her voice broke. Why did you have to do it at the wedding? Why couldn't you just tell me privately? Would you have believed me? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it, looked down at her hands. No, she finally said. I wouldn't have. I would have thought you were lying because you were jealous. I would have gone to Blake, and he would have explained it all away, and I would have believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because he made me feel special and important and like I was finally good enough. You were always good enough. Not to his family. Not to him, really. He used to make comments about my clothes, my hair, the way I talked. Little things, you know. Nothing mean enough to get upset about, but enough to make me feel like I needed to try harder, be better, be more sophisticated. More like them. That's how it starts, I said quietly. That's how abuse starts. Little comments, little criticisms, making you feel like you're not quite good enough, so you're always trying to please them, always changing yourself to fit their image. She started crying again. I called you a loser. I said I didn't need an old loser to walk me down the aisle. I said you were an embarrassment. I know. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I got caught up in Blake's world, in his family's money and status, and I forgot who I was. I forgot where I came from. I forgot that you worked 2 jobs to raise me, that you never missed a parent-teacher conference, that you sat up with me when I had nightmares. I forgot everything that mattered because I wanted to be somebody I wasn't. I sat down beside her on the couch. I forgive you. Just like that? Just like that. You're my daughter. That doesn't change because you said some hurtful things. You were under Blake's influence, under his family's influence. They made you feel ashamed of your life, of me. That's what manipulators do. She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her like I had when she was little. We sat there in silence for a long time. What happens now? She finally asked. Now you rebuild. You figure out who you are without Blake, without his family's expectations. You remember that you're strong and smart and capable. You survived this, Sarah. That takes courage. I don't feel courageous. I feel stupid and humiliated and lost. That's normal. Give it time. She pulled away and looked at me. The Petersons are going to come after you, aren't they? They're going to sue you. Probably. They've already threatened it. I won't let them. I'll testify on your behalf. I'll tell everyone that everything in your letter was true, that you were trying to protect me. That might make things worse for you. They'll say you're lying to protect me. I don't care. You're my dad. You stood up for me when nobody else would. Now it's my turn. Sarah. No, Dad. I'm done being a coward. I'm done letting other people make me feel small. Blake and his family tried to destroy you to cover up their own sins. I'm not going to let that happen. She stood up, wiping her eyes. I need to go. I have some calls to make. But I'll be back tomorrow, okay? We need to figure out our strategy for when the lawsuits start coming. Okay? She hugged me tight at the door. Thank you for saving me, even if the way you did it hurt like hell. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Dad. She left, and I stood at the door for a long time, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. 3 days later, a detective showed up at my apartment. Detective James Miller, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a rumpled suit. He showed me his badge and asked if he could come in. Am I under arrest? No, I just have some questions about the incident at St. Mary's Church. I let him in. He sat on my couch, pulled out a notebook, and studied me for a moment. Did you write the letter that was read at the wedding? Yes. How did you obtain the information in that letter? Public records, mostly. Court filings, newspaper archives, social media. I hired a private investigator to confirm Blake Peterson's marital status. Everything in that letter is documented and verifiable. Some of that information was sealed. Accessing sealed records is illegal. I didn't access any sealed records. I found references to sealed records in public documents and news articles. That's not illegal. I also didn't hack anything, didn't bribe anyone, didn't break any laws to get my information. He wrote something in his notebook. The Peterson family wants to press charges. Harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, disruption of a religious ceremony. Is telling the truth defamation? That depends on intent and damages. Why did you do it, Mr. Anderson? I took a breath. My daughter called me a loser. She said I was an embarrassment to her. She told me she didn't want me at her wedding because I wasn't good enough for Blake's family. I raised her alone after her mother left. I worked 2 jobs to put her through college. I sacrificed everything for her, and she threw me away like garbage because I didn't have money or status. So this was revenge. This was truth. Sarah deserved to know who she was marrying. Blake Peterson was still married to another woman. If that wedding had gone through, my daughter would have been committing bigamy unknowingly. She would have had no legal protection, no legal recourse. Blake could have left her at any time, and she would have had no claim to anything because the marriage wouldn't have been legal. You could have told her privately. She wouldn't have believed me. She was in love with Blake, or at least in love with the life he represented. If I'd approached her privately, she would have gone to Blake, and he would have convinced her I was lying. His family would have backed him up. They have money and lawyers and connections. I'm just a hardware store employee with no credibility in their world. So, you humiliated her publicly instead. I exposed the truth publicly so it couldn't be denied or covered up. Yes, it hurt her. Yes, she was humiliated. But I saved her from a marriage to an abuser, a manipulator, a criminal. Blake Peterson was committing bigamy. That's a felony. Should I have just let it happen? Detective Miller closed his notebook. Off the record? Okay. Blake Peterson is a piece of work. We've had complaints about him before from Jennifer Hayes and from the employee who sued him. Nothing stuck because his family has good lawyers and deep pockets. But your letter got people looking closer. We're reopening the domestic violence complaint from Jennifer Hayes. She's willing to testify now. We're also looking into Dr. Peterson's practice. The medical board is very interested in those malpractice suits. Good. But you're not off the hook. The Petersons are powerful people with powerful friends. They're going to make your life hell. They've already filed a civil suit against you for $5 million in damages. I have nothing. They can't get blood from a stone. They can garnish your wages for the rest of your life. They can take your tax returns. They can make sure you never have a penny to your name, and that's if they don't decide to pursue criminal charges. Harassment is a misdemeanor, but it's still a criminal record. Let them do their worst. I'd do it again. He studied me for a long moment, then stood up. You're either very brave or very stupid, Mr. Anderson. I haven't decided which. Maybe both. One more thing. Be careful. The Petersons have friends in low places as well as high places. I've seen them ruin people who crossed them. Watch your back. He left, and I locked the door behind him, checking the deadbolt twice. The black sedan was still parked across the street. The next 6 weeks were chaos. The story wouldn't die. Every time it seemed to fade from the news, something new would happen to bring it back. Blake was arrested for bigamy. His mugshot appeared on every local news website, his face pale and shocked, his expensive suit rumpled. He posted bail within hours, but the damage was done. His reputation was destroyed. Dr. Peterson was suspended from the hospital pending investigation. The state medical board subpoenaed his records going back 10 years. They found a pattern of unnecessary procedures, particularly on elderly patients with good insurance. Medicare fraud investigators got involved. His practice declared bankruptcy within a month, unable to handle the legal fees and the loss of patients. Victoria Peterson filed for divorce, claiming she'd known nothing about her husband's activities. Nobody believed her, but she hired excellent lawyers and managed to protect half their assets before everything got frozen in the criminal investigation. And Sarah? Sarah was fighting battles on multiple fronts. She discovered that Blake had taken out credit cards in her name before the wedding, racking up over $50,000 in debt. He'd used her information from when they'd applied for the apartment together. She had to file police reports, dispute the charges, prove she hadn't authorized the accounts. It was a nightmare of paperwork and phone calls and lawyers. She was also dealing with the social fallout. Half her friends thought she was a victim, the other half thought she must have known about Blake's past and was lying now to save face. She lost her job at the marketing firm where she'd worked for 3 years. They claimed it was downsizing, but the timing was suspicious. She couldn't find another job because her name was all over the internet, associated with scandal and drama. She moved in with me after 2 weeks in the motel. My 1-bedroom apartment was cramped, but we made it work. She slept on the couch, spent her days job hunting and dealing with lawyers, spent her nights crying in the bathroom where she thought I couldn't hear her. I'd never felt more helpless. The Petersons' lawsuit against me progressed slowly. Their lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to drag me through depositions, trying to break me financially. I couldn't afford a lawyer, so I represented myself. I spent hours in the library researching legal procedures, filing responses, preparing for court dates. Sarah wanted to help, but I wouldn't let her. You need to focus on your own legal problems, I told her. Blake's fraud, the credit cards, that's more important. You did this for me. I'm not going to abandon you. You're not abandoning me. You're living here. You're supporting me emotionally. That's enough. But she insisted on attending every court hearing, sitting in the gallery, showing the judge that I wasn't alone. I think it helped. The judge seemed sympathetic, especially when the Petersons' lawyer kept demanding financial information that proved I had nothing worth taking. Then something unexpected happened. Jennifer Hayes, Blake's actual wife, reached out to Sarah. They met at a coffee shop downtown. Sarah told me about it that night, sitting at my tiny kitchen table, drinking tea I'd made her. She's nice, Dad. Really nice. And she's been through hell with Blake and his family. They threatened her, harassed her, paid her off to stay silent. She's been living in fear for 2 years. What did she want? She wanted to thank me. She said that when you exposed Blake at the wedding, it gave her the courage to speak up again. She's testifying against him now. She's working with the police. And she wanted to meet the daughter of the man who finally stood up to the Petersons. How is she doing? Better now. She's in therapy. She's rebuilding her life. But she said she lost 2 years being afraid. She said she wished someone had done what you did before she married Blake. She could have avoided all that pain. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. She wants to help us. She has evidence, text messages, and emails from Blake and his family, threats they made to her. Her lawyer thinks it could help with your case. I don't want to drag her into this more than she already is. Dad, she wants to help. She says you're a hero for protecting me the way nobody protected her. Please let her help. I thought about it. Okay, but only if she's sure. I don't want the Petersons coming after her again. She's sure. She's done being afraid of them. 2 weeks later, Jennifer's lawyer sent a package to the court. Text messages from Blake threatening Jennifer, telling her she'd regret leaving him. Emails from Dr. Peterson offering her more money to sign additional non-disclosure agreements. Voicemails from Victoria calling her terrible names, threatening to destroy her reputation. The Petersons' lawsuit against me fell apart after that. Their lawyer withdrew, claiming conflict of interest. Without a lawyer, the Petersons tried to proceed themselves, but they were out of their depth. The judge dismissed most of their claims, and the remaining claims were so weak that they eventually dropped them rather than face a trial they'd lose. I'd won, but it didn't feel like winning. I'd lost my job. Sarah had lost her job and her reputation. We were both financially devastated, living in my cramped apartment, trying to rebuild our lives from scratch. Still, we had each other, and that was something. 3 months after the wedding that never happened, Sarah got a job offer. A nonprofit organization that helped domestic violence survivors was looking for a victim advocate. The pay wasn't great, but it came with health insurance and a sense of purpose. I want to help women like Jennifer, Sarah told me. Women who are trapped in abusive relationships who don't know how to get out. I understand now what they're going through. I was almost one of them. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. Wait until I actually help someone. But she was good at the job. Really good. She had empathy born from experience. She understood the shame and fear and confusion that kept women trapped. She knew how to listen without judgment, how to help without pushing. She started coming home from work with stories. A woman she'd helped get a restraining order, a mother she'd helped find emergency housing for her and her kids, a teenager she'd connected with counseling services. I'm making a difference, Dad, she said one night, her eyes bright. I'm actually helping people. You always had it in you. You just needed to find the right path. I found work too, eventually, not at the hardware store. My manager called and apologized, but said corporate had decided to let me go permanently because of all the publicity. But I found a job at a small construction company doing purchasing and inventory management. It paid a bit more than the hardware store, and my new boss didn't care about my internet infamy. Hell, that took guts, he said when I explained what had happened. You did right by your daughter. That's what matters. Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. Sarah saved up enough to get her own apartment after 6 months. Nothing fancy, a studio in an older building, but it was hers. I helped her move, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs, both of us laughing about how she'd gone from planning to live in a luxury apartment with Blake to celebrating having her own studio with a Murphy bed. You know what? She said, looking around her empty apartment. I'm happier here than I ever would have been with Blake. This is mine. I earned it. Nobody can take it away from me. That's the spirit. We were closer now than we'd been in years. We had dinner together once a week, alternating between my place and hers. We texted every day, just small things, checking in. She told me about her work, her new friends at the nonprofit. I told her about my job, about the guys on my crew who'd become friends. It felt like we'd survived something together, like we'd been through a war and made it out the other side. Blake went to trial for bigamy and fraud. Sarah and I both attended, sitting in the gallery, watching as the prosecution laid out his crimes. Jennifer testified calm and clear, describing the abuse and manipulation. The employee who'd sued for sexual harassment testified too, her NDA void now that criminal charges were involved. Sarah testified about the credit card fraud, presenting bank statements and forged signatures. Blake's lawyer tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, a man who'd made mistakes but didn't deserve prison. The jury didn't buy it. They convicted him on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison. Dr. Peterson's medical license was permanently revoked. He was indicted on Medicare fraud charges and ended up pleading guilty to avoid a trial. He got 3 years in federal prison and had to pay back over $2 million. Victoria Peterson moved to Florida and remarried within a year. She changed her name and reinvented herself as a philanthropist. I saw her on social media once, all smiles at some charity gala, like she hadn't been married to a criminal, like her son wasn't in prison. Some people are very good at moving on. A year after the wedding, Jennifer Hayes invited Sarah and me to lunch. We met at a restaurant downtown, a bright, cheerful place with good food and better company. Jennifer looked different than in the photos I'd seen from her time with Blake. Healthier. Her eyes were clear, her smile genuine. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it a different color. She looked like a woman who'd shed an old skin and grown a new one. "I wanted to thank you both," she said, after we'd ordered. "Mr. Anderson, what you did at that wedding saved Sarah from the hell I went through. And Sarah, your testimony at Blake's trial helped put him away. I finally feel safe for the first time in years." "Please, call me Tom," I said. "And I'm glad you're doing better." "I am. I'm in therapy. I'm working again. I'm dating someone nice. It took a long time to trust again, but I'm getting there." She turned to Sarah. "How are you doing?" "Better," Sarah said. "Much better. I love my job, I have a great therapist, and I'm learning to trust my own judgment again. I still have moments where I feel stupid for not seeing who Blake really was, but I'm working on forgiving myself. Don't feel stupid. These men are experts at manipulation. They show you what you want to see until you're hooked, then they slowly reveal their true selves. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped. That's not your fault." "I know. Intellectually, I know. But emotionally, it's harder. Give it time. One day you'll wake up and realize you haven't thought about Blake in weeks, then months. Then you'll see him for what he really was, a sad, insecure man who hurt people to feel powerful, and you'll pity him instead of hating him. I'm not there yet. You will be." We talked for 2 hours, sharing stories, laughing, commiserating. Jennifer told us about her new boyfriend, a teacher she'd met through friends. Sarah told us about a particularly difficult case at work that had ended successfully. I mostly listened, grateful to see these two strong women who'd survived Blake Peterson supporting each other. As we were leaving, Jennifer pulled me aside. "I want you to know something," she said. "When that priest read your letter at the wedding, I was watching online. One of my friends was there and live-streamed it. I sat in my apartment and cried because someone finally told the truth about Blake. Someone finally stood up to his family. You gave me hope that justice was possible. I'm sorry you had to go through what you did. Don't apologize. You saved your daughter from going through the same thing. That takes courage most people don't have. You're a good father, Tom." "I'm just a father who loves his daughter." "That's what makes you a good one." 2 years after the wedding, Sarah met someone. His name was David, and he was a teacher at an alternative high school for at-risk youth. He was patient and kind, and made Sarah laugh. She brought him to dinner at my apartment, nervous about my reaction. "Dad, this is David. David, this is my father." We shook hands. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His eyes were warm. "It's nice to finally meet you, sir. Sarah talks about you all the time." "All good things, I hope." "Mostly," Sarah said with a smile. I may have mentioned that you once tried to ground me for a month because I got a B in algebra. You were capable of an A. I was motivating you. You were being ridiculous. David laughed. My dad was the same way, drove me crazy at the time, but looking back, I appreciate that he cared. I liked him immediately. Over dinner, I watched them together. The way he listened when she talked. The way he touched her hand gently when she seemed stressed. The way he didn't try to control the conversation or make everything about himself. He was nothing like Blake. After dinner, while Sarah was in the kitchen getting dessert, David turned to me. Mr. Anderson, I want you to know that I understand what Sarah went through with her ex-fiancé. She's told me everything. I want you to know that I would never hurt her like that. I respect her, I support her independence, and I'm here because I love her for who she is, not who I want her to be. That's good to hear. I also want you to know that I think what you did at that wedding took incredible courage. A lot of fathers would have let their anger at being excluded stop them from protecting their daughter. You put her safety above your pride. That's real love. I didn't know what to say. This young man had understood something it had taken Sarah months to understand. Thank you, I finally said. 6 months later, David asked my permission to propose to Sarah. We were at a coffee shop, just the two of us. He was nervous, fidgeting with his cup. I love your daughter, sir. I want to spend my life with her. I want to marry her. And I know, given what happened last time, this is probably a difficult thing for you to hear. But I want to do this right. I want your blessing. Do you love her? More than anything. Do you know what she's been through? Not just with Blake, but all the healing she's had to do? Yes. She's told me everything. It makes me love her more, seeing how strong she is, how she's rebuilt herself. Will you be patient with her? She still has trust issues sometimes. She still has moments where she needs reassurance. I know. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be patient as long as it takes. Will you respect her independence? Her career? Her dreams? Absolutely. Her work at the nonprofit is important to her, and it's important to me that she pursues what makes her happy. I'm not interested in controlling her or changing her. Then you have my blessing. He exhaled, relief flooding his face. Thank you, sir. That means everything. And David? Call me Tom. We're going to be family. He proposed to Sarah at the nonprofit where she worked, in front of her colleagues and the women she'd helped. He told her that watching her help others had made him fall in love with her strength and compassion. She said yes through tears. The wedding was small and simple. Just family and close friends at a community center, nothing fancy or expensive. Sarah wore a simple white dress she'd found at a department store. She carried a bouquet of daisies, her favorite flower. This time, I walked her down the aisle. She held my arm tight, and I could feel her trembling slightly. You okay? I whispered. Yeah, just nervous and grateful. So grateful, Dad. For what? For saving me, for loving me even when I was awful to you, for being here now. I'll always be here, sweetheart. Always. We reached the front of the room where David waited, his face full of love and joy. I handed Sarah over to him, but before I let go, I leaned close to David. Take care of her. I will, I promise. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. No elaborate decorations, no expensive flowers, no designer dress. Just two people who loved each other, making promises in front of people who cared about them. The officiant, a friend of David's, spoke about trust and partnership and building a life together. He talked about how love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. Sarah and David wrote their own vows. David promised to support her dreams, respect her independence, and stand beside her through whatever came. Sarah promised to trust him with her heart, communicate honestly even when it was difficult, and build a life of mutual respect and love. There were no objections, no dramatic revelations, no letters handed to the officiant, just two people getting married the way it should be. At the reception, which was really just cake and punch in the community center's hall, Sarah pulled me aside. "Thank you for being here, Dad. Thank you for walking me down the aisle. I know last time I said terrible things about you doing that, and I'm so sorry. That's in the past. We don't need to revisit it. No, I need to say this. When I told you I didn't need an old loser to walk me down the aisle, when I said you were an embarrassment, those were the worst words I've ever spoken. They haunt me, because the truth is, there's no one I'd rather have walk me down the aisle than you. You're the best man I know. You've always been my hero, even when I was too blind to see it. You're going to make me cry at your wedding. Good, you earned it." She hugged me tight. "I love you, Dad. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. I could never give up on you. You're my daughter. That's not something that changes." David came over, put his arm around Sarah. "Mind if I steal my wife for a dance? She's all yours, take good care of her." "Always." I watched them dance, Sarah's head on David's shoulder, both of them smiling. Around them, their friends and family celebrated, genuine happiness filling the room. Jennifer was there with her boyfriend, chatting with Sarah's co-workers from the nonprofit. My crew from the construction company was there, drinking punch and telling embarrassing stories about me. It was nothing like the wedding at St. Mary's Church with its white roses and marble floors and elaborate decorations. It was better. It was real. Later, after most of the guests had left, Sarah came and sat beside me. "Happy?" I asked. "Incredibly happy. This is exactly the wedding I wanted. Not some expensive show for people I don't care about, just the people I love, celebrating something real." "I'm glad. Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret what you did, exposing Blake at the other wedding?" I thought about it. "I regret hurting you. I'll always regret that, but I don't regret stopping you from marrying him. If I hadn't done it, you wouldn't be here now, married to David, happy and safe. You'd be trapped in a nightmare just like Jennifer was." "I know, and I'm grateful. It took me a long time to understand, but you saved my life that day. You sacrificed our relationship to protect me. That's what real love looks like." "I just did what any father would do." "No. Most fathers would have stayed silent to avoid conflict. Most fathers would have been too angry at being excluded to care about protecting me. You put my safety above your pride and your pain. That takes strength most people don't have." She took my hand. "I want you to know that I've forgiven you for the humiliation, and I need you to forgive me for the terrible things I said to you." "I forgave you a long time ago, sweetheart." "I know, but I needed to say it out loud. I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what you sacrificed for me." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching David talk with his parents, watching Jennifer laugh with her boyfriend, watching all these good people enjoying a simple, honest celebration,